Move aside. Move aside. Let the ambulance through. Please move aside.
Welcome to the Ambulance World Podcast, where we make EMS connections across the globe. Now, here's Evan.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to AmbulanceWorld.com. This is Evan, and today we have a pretty interesting podcast in store. And I'll tell you a little bit about the backstory of it, that it was a little bit hard to set up originally, and I'll tell you about some of the glitches with it. We're going to be doing an interview with a gentleman by the name of Chaim Rafalowski. Now, Chaim is been a paramedic, I think he said close to 40 years, but the interesting background story is he's the Director of Emergency Preparedness and the liaison to the European Union for the Israeli EMS service. MDA, Magen David Adom is the name of the organization. So he's got a lot of interesting things to share with us. His English is fantastic, so he's able to share with us a lot of contrasting things, what's unique about the Israeli system, things that they're really good at, things about their history. It's a pretty interesting history lesson, and a lot of a good insight into the organization. We kind of missed each other a bunch of times. In the past, I had gone to Israel and done some training with him, which was very interesting. And I had met him here in the United States a few times when he came here to speak. So we kept on missing each other, trying to arrange times to speak. We finally were able to make arrangements. So he wasn't able to do Skype, which is how I'm normally recording these interviews. So I had to call him to the MDA headquarters in Tel Aviv. So I called from my Skype on my computer to his landline at his office and recorded it with a program called ScreenFlow. So the sound on it was not so great. I actually sent the whole audio file out to a professional audio mixing person who was able to adjust the levels and stuff, so it's actually not bad. So the sound isn't wonderful, and if you wonder why, this is what it is. At Ambulance World, this is kind of a new project, and we're sort of just starting to learn how to deal with all the little glitches. And if you listen from the first podcast, and we're on number 5, this is number 5 now, they get a little bit better as we're going along, and I'm hoping that in the near future they're going to be seamless. So please bear with me. We're trying to provide you with really interesting quality content, and we're working through the technical processes. So I hope you enjoy this and stick with us. Oh, and another little technical thing in case you're interested in that kind of stuff. I've been doing all of the video editing with a program called ScreenFlow, and I'm going to do a trial run today, and I'm going to edit this with something called Camtasia. So we'll see how that goes. So I hope you enjoy it, and thanks for joining us. And if you have any questions, you guys could always email me directly, evan@ambulanceworld.com, Evan, E-V-A-N, or at info@ambulanceworld.com. And you can check us out. We're on YouTube. We're on Facebook. We're starting with the Twitter thing right now. And always check us out on the website. We're also offering lots of affiliate stuff on the website that are related to the content that we provide to you. And so if it's stuff that you're interested in, we'd love for you to go and purchase from the affiliates. Again, at Ambulance World, we're not selling anything. This is free content, and we're not pushing you to do anything. This is a free service to you guys. So anyway, here we go. So here's Chaim Rafalowski from Tel Aviv. I hope you enjoy it. Hello, everybody, and we have from Tel Aviv, we have Chaim Rafalowski from Magen David Adom, the Israeli EMS service. Welcome, Chaim. So I gave a little bit of an introduction about MADA and yourself before we got started, but maybe we'll start right and tell us a little bit about yourself, if you'd like to introduce yourself to the audience.
My name is Chaim Rafalowski. I'm the National Disaster Management Coordinator for Magen David Adom. I started my career in Magen David Adom, which is the Red Star of David, in the age of 15 as a youth volunteer in the ambulance service. We start our career as volunteers when we are 15 as first aid providers. riding rescue in the ambulances. You can understand that this is a lot of fun. I became a staff member when I finished my military service. I was a first aid instructor, a dispatcher. After the first Gulf War in 1992, I became the Emergency Management Department Director, where I served for almost 15 years. And now I'm in charge of the cooperation with the International Red Cross when it comes to large crises and disasters, and I'm also managing a few European projects that Magen David Adom is involved with. About Magen David Adom, I have to say that we are two organizations in one. We are the National EMS for the State of Israel, we are the National Blood Service, and we are the Red Cross National Society of Israel.
Oh, well, it sounds like you keep yourself pretty busy. So you've been doing this since you're 15. So this is you've been doing this more than a couple years.
Yes, quite a few. For me, it's always amazing that we have today staff members that were born after I started volunteering for MDA, not to say start working for MDA as a full-time staff member.
Okay. Maybe you could tell us a little bit of if you don't mind sharing, a history of MADA. I'm using the term MADA as an abbreviation from Magen David Adom. Kind of how it started at its inception and how it's grown to where it is right now as one of the premier EMS agencies in the world.
Yes. So, Magen David Adom, as I said, the Red Star date started in 1930, and for those of you, most of you, that are not aware of the Israeli history, it's earlier than the state. The Israeli state of Israel was established in 1948. That was during the British government of Palestine. Back then, a group of Jewish doctors decided that they need to start. It was called back then the Group of Volunteers for Rapid First Aid.
Okay.
And they started with one ambulance in Tel Aviv, as I said, in 1930, and grew to be a national service which started as a 100% volunteer service providing first aid, and this was the reality during our war of independence, 1947 to 1949. In 1951, the Israeli parliament passed the Magen David Adom law, which establishes the organization as the national EMS for the state of Israel. And for many years, what we did was to provide basic first aid and transportation to patients.
Okay.
In the mid-70s, we were very lucky to have Dr. Nancy Carolan coming to Israel in 1976 with the idea of paramedics, which was totally new to this country. Our first class of paramedics started in 1978. They graduated in 1980 and opened the first advanced life support ambulances, which back then were called the mobile coronary units in Israel. They were staffed by an EMT, a paramedic, and a physician. And it grew slowly to the number of 24 advanced life support ambulances all over Israel. That was the figure in the early 90s. And then we shifted to a model which is very similar to the American one, where we have an EMT and a paramedic on the ambulance without a physician on board, but we have a medical control which is done by phone or by radio, which is the module today. Magen David Adom today is an organization that runs about 1,300 calls per day, operational calls per day. We have a fleet of around 900 emergency vehicles, but this number is very misleading because we have much more ambulances than we need for our daily activities, for the reason of having enough resources for a large mass casualty incident or a conflict time where Israel will be targeted by rockets, as it happened during the last war in 2006. Our largest shift is around 90 ALS ambulances and about 150 DLS ambulances all over the country. We are 1,200 operational staff, and we have around 10,000 volunteers, which are active volunteers in our.
Well, that's a pretty big organization. Let me ask you. I am going to ask you about some mass casualty things because, unfortunately, that's sort of what your organization is known for as being able to handle particularly well. But real quickly, in the history of Magen David Adom, I know that I'm mentioning it because in the United States, Canada, UK, the standardized text that most paramedic schools, even EMT schools, are using is the Nancy Caroline text. Mm-hmm. And I know that she was involved in Israel with a startup or with advanced life support in MDA. Could you tell us a little bit about something about her and her?
Nancy Caroline is the founder of the Advanced Life Support Service in Magen David Adom. She started it as a one-man show in 1976. She was the teacher of the first class. She supervised many more because for almost 6 years she was our medical director. And she is basically considered the big mother of the paramedics in Israel.
Yeah, it's amazing because really her texts are. I teach a paramedic class right now, and that's the text that we use, and it's kind of the lessons that she learned from Israel. She's kind of shared with the rest of the world. It's pretty amazing.
Yes, we actually don't call our textbook the textbook for paramedics. It's called, in short, Nancy Caroline. People don't say the textbook for paramedics. They say, go to Nancy Caroline and look for it.
Well, she died in the 1990s, but she left a pretty significant legacy that's going to live on beyond her. It's pretty amazing.
Yes. Paramedic school is named after her.
Well, this is probably a good segue to maybe if you can talk a little bit about your training. I've spent some time in Israel in the past, and I've seen some of the training that goes on. And one of the things that always impressed me was that the training was always very relevant and realistic. Whereas a lot of places they just do theoretical training, mm-hmm. And all the research towards training shows that the more realism and the more stress you induce in training, the better the outcome is going to be. So maybe you could tell us a little bit about the training required to become involved for the EMTs and paramedics in MDA, and maybe how it compares to the rest of the Western world's EMS services.
Our first aid providers have a 60-hour course, and I have to say it's officially 60 hours because they are volunteers and their trainers are volunteers, and most of them are youth. And when I was a training coordinator in one of our branches, I always told my youth instructors, guys, I know that 60 hours, by no chance you are going to finish your training by that time, so 80 hours is okay. When you get to the 100, I'm going to be upset, and if it goes to 120, I'll be totally pissed. So it's around 60 hours for the first aid providers, and that gives them the capacity to go as a third person on the ambulance and assist the EMTs in the treatment and the follow-up of a patient. The EMTs are trained for 1,500 hours. It's a 5 weeks training.
Let me ask you, you said 1,500 for EMTs?
Yes.
Wow, that's a tremendous amount.
It goes basically 4 hours of training, what we call the medical part of the business. And then they have another week which has to do with driving the ambulance, safety, and 3 complete days that are dedicated to mass casualty, hazardous materials incidents, because in our service, all the ambulances carry personal protective equipment for chemical incidents, so this is something they should know how to use. And if they encounter themselves in a mass casualty situation and they are the first ambulance on the scene, they will have to be the organizers of the scene until another more senior staff member arrives. And we have then another training, which is for what we call senior medics. Senior medics are EMTs that will not become paramedics one day, but we want them to be able to participate in the activities of the ALS unit. So they will have to know how to use the equipment, how to prepare medications, how to defibrillate. So they can assist the paramedic because in many ALS ambulances, the person who is driving the ALS unit is not a paramedic. So any paramedic who has done a resuscitation by himself knows that he is very short of working hands. So we train the senior medics to participate in the treatment in the ALS unit. Paramedic training. Paramedic training has different careers in Israel. You can go to MDA paramedic school. There you will be trained for a year and a half, 4 months in the classroom. Then you will go for 3 months of rotations at the hospital. And then you will have to go for a minimum of 80 shifts supervised by a senior paramedic. On the street, most of our candidates don't reach the minimum standard by 80 shifts, so they go to 100 and they can prolong it up to 120. And if by 120 shifts they don't meet the standard, they will not graduate.
What's more or less the dropout rate for or who?
In our paramedic school, usually the class starts with about 24, 26 students, and around 20 to 21 will graduate. But, and it is important to mention, in order to enter the training, you need to have 3 years of experience as an EMT.
Oh, okay.
You cannot come out of the street and say, I want to be a paramedic. When we did that, we had almost 30% of failure.
Okay.
In our paramedic class, there are some things that even the best instructor in the world cannot teach. There is such a thing that every paramedic knows that is called a gray patient. And unfortunately, gray patients don't appear in the textbook. And every paramedic knows that if your patient is gray and diaphoretic, do something, do it fast because your patient is dying. And after the first time you see that happening, you understand what do you mean by that. This is why we believe that the experience is so important to our paramedics before they start the training program. As I said, this is the shortest career or way to be a paramedic. The other way is to go to the Beersheba University, where you will study for 3 years and a half. And there you will have a bachelor degree from the university. And it's called emergency medicine. And your paramedic title, the paramedic part of the training, is provided by MDA, although it is done in the university. But on top of that, statistics, biology, physiology, second language, computers, IT, and all that stuff, university stuff. The third way of doing it is going to one of our nursing schools, where after 4 years and a half, you will become a registered nurse, a bachelor of university in nursing, and a paramedic. And the military is doing the same for military paramedics, where, again, Magen David Adom trains the trainees, but there the training is only 10 months. Military has the advantage that they don't have a limit of learning hours per day.
What do you find is between the standardized route, just interning and then going to paramedic school, going to Beersheba University, or going to the nursing paramedic combo course? Of the three options, what do you find is the most popular option for to become a paramedic?
Popular, I would would say, is our school, and it's because most of the people who apply for paramedic training don't see being a paramedic as a career for life. Usually there are youth volunteers of MDA that want very much to be a paramedic, but say this will be a career for 5, 6 years, and by the time I'm 30, I'm going to pursue another career.
That's actually a really smart way to do it. I mean, I can tell you from my personal experience, I'm 45 years old now. When I became a paramedic, that was my goal. That's what I wanted to do, and I didn't see in the future beyond that. And as everybody knows, years of carrying people up and down stairs, long shifts, your knees and your back and your hips start to go, and you have to start looking elsewhere for a career. It's not a and working.
And your wife doesn't like the idea that you are not at home nights, weekends, and holidays.
Yeah, you don't see your wife, you don't see your children as much, and just the toll that really lots of long shifts take on your body is very difficult over the years.
So this is why most of the people today, the young people say, I want to be a paramedic, but I know that this is not going to be my career for life, so I do it the fastest way I can. I enjoy it, and then I go to pursue another academic career or whatever career.
That's I like the model. I like the model a lot because here we do it in the United States we kind of always end up doing it the other way around, which is you become a paramedic, and then after 5, 8, 10 years on the job, and you realize that it's not something that you're either your lifestyle or physically you're able to do for a very, very long time, then you start planning, and it's already a little bit too late. So yeah, I love that the pre-planning model is wonderful.
Yes, this is why also we see more and more candidates going to the nursing school, because at the end of the day they have a profession which allows them to work in an outpatient clinic and have more normal life the moment they decide that that adrenaline rush is not a need any longer.
Yeah, that's smart. Now let me ask you. So, how would you compare? Now, I know this is a kind of a very vague general comparison that I'm asking of you, but compare maybe the structure and organization of MDA, how it runs, to any of the agencies in the Western world. Are they kind of on par with each other, and what are the distinct differences that you would see?
Differences. From the European model, it's rather clear. The European ambulance services, which I have to say, some of them are very, very good, are run by physicians. And MDA is run by paramedics. Now, our current Director General for the first time is a former EMT. Yes, we have our medical director, but he is not a real physician. There are not that many of them, and all the management positions are held by paramedics. I think it gives the organization a different sense. The fact that all our management grew up as EMTs or paramedics gives a very operational sense to the organization. Sometimes we laugh that for us having a small or large incident in the middle of a boring day is great, because everybody gives you the excuse to leave your desk and rush to the scene. And I'm proud to say that this is the spirit, that it doesn't matter what time of the day or night, there is an expectation, a very clear expectation that you will see your management on the field. As a rule, all our management goes right to rescue once a week. We are obliged is a tough word because we actually like it, but it's part of our job to be on the street once a week. The philosophy that the things that you see on the field, you will never see them from your desk. So we need to be there, we need to work, and we need to carry the same equipment that we tell our staff and volunteers that they need to carry to the patient, and follow the same rules and regulations that we so nicely write in memos. Now we have to follow them. And I think that this is a very important issue in the spirit of our organization. The other thing is the role of volunteers. I was talking with an American colleague, and we were all discussing the issue of burnout. Because I think it's a major problem for all of us. You're dealing with human beings, you're dealing with human beings in suffering, and you, from time to time, need to look for the human being in yourself when you are on those.
Absolutely.
And he was laughing at me and saying, you don't know what's burnout all about. And I said, look, my EMTs, my paramedics, they are complaining all day long. They hate their patients. And he said, yes, but there is a very important difference that you forget. He said, you have in your ambulance, as a paramedic or as an EMT, 1 or 2 17, 18 years old volunteers. They could have been doing many other things. They could have been partying with their friends. They could have been, I don't know, playing PlayStation. In our case, we have volunteers that come, especially from abroad, to volunteer with us. And when you look at those young people that are there because they believe that you are doing something important, all the cynicism that comes with our job, goes away to a degree, because they transmit you a sense of, yes, what we are doing here is important. What we are doing here is something that makes us proud. And talking about being proud of something we do is not very Israeli. We are expected to be tough and not emotional. But I think it has a very positive impact on the people that we are working with. And I think that this is something that gives a really special spirit.
That's awesome. I mean, I know that my father, for example, is a businessman, and he always says to me that he's very proud of what I do for a living as a paramedic, despite the fact that I'm probably overworked and underpaid. Because at the end of the day, I could say that I saved somebody's life, or I made somebody's life better, or I helped the family in a time of crisis. When at the end of his day, all he did was make a deal. So it's
and I'm afraid that this is something that we unfortunately tend to forget. And it's important that we have someone around us to remind us about that.
Okay. Well, yeah, it's actually a good point. And I think people in EMS, they try to be tough guys a lot, and they don't like to show that there's a human toll and an emotional toll on dealing with sick and injured people. I think anybody who it doesn't bother them, they probably are a sociopath or something's wrong with them. And even though one job might not bother you, cumulatively it has a strong effect on people. Mm-hmm. Well, let me ask you. So I guess kind of this is a good segue into talking about MDA is very well known. Unfortunately, I guess the circumstances are unfortunate for handling large incidents. In the United States, I could tell you I was involved to a certain extent in the 9/11 incident, which was horrific, but the response was completely unorganized, unstructured, and it took quite a while until the structure was able to kind of coalesce, numbers of days. In Israel, certainly in the 1990s, there was a lot of major incidents, and where they were handled very well. Maybe you could talk a little bit about how you train for that, how you prepare for that, and that's it.
I have to start with one, I think, very basic concept, which is, I think, very different between Israel, the United States, and Europe. We start with the idea that a mass casualty situation is chaos. And we always say if the scene was not chaotic, that means that it wasn't a real mass casualty incident. And very early when and I was involved in the first version of our MCI procedures in the late 80s and reviewing them several times during the years. And one of our first basic concepts was the idea that we are not going to try and make order in these kind of things. Because making order takes too much time, effort, and resources, and that comes at the expense of patients. And for example, one of the basic things that we disagree with the MCI literature is about the role of bystanders. Okay. In a mass casualty situation, you will always have bystanders on the scene. And bystanders all over the world try to help. So what do you do with them? Chase them away? We say in Israel it is impossible. So let's use them to help us. And there is a huge debate about, for example, the use of tourniquets in mass casualty situations. And although I responded to quite a few mass casualty situations, I've never tried a tourniquet. Because our philosophy is very simple. Open a first aid bag. Say to the crowd, you have here bandages. Wherever you see bleeding, take the bandage and apply pressure. And if you see bleeding, press hard. And if it's the worst case scenario, they will cause a tourniquet, nothing bad happens. But if someone believes that when I'm on a scene and I have patients with massive bleeding, I arrive at the scene very fast, 5, 6, 7 minutes after the event starts, and I will be able to identify the patient that needs a tourniquet and apply it on time to save his life, I think that way beyond a human capacity. So we say, no problem. We have, it's part of our philosophy to use the bystanders, not to fight with the bystanders. This is why, for example, part of our simulation procedure is that we will do it in public places and we will let the public interfere with us. Because this is what they will do during a real situation. There is no sense in training our people in working in a very sterile environment where they will, in the real event, they will have a lot of public there. Another thing is that there will be never what we call an MDA simulation. It will be always a joint simulation with firefighters, with police officers, with the bomb squad technicians, because each one of us has different needs. We have different views about the situation. So we are going to disagree. Disagreeing is part of the game. But we need to disagree on training, so we understand where we disagree when we arrive to the real incident. I need to know on a first-name basis the people I'm going to work with on an incident beforehand. Because if I train with that person, I did a simulation, I know him or her, I know that they are good professionals, I have a much, much better starting point when I'm on the side of a real incident. And I think that for us, these are the key issues. And for example, this cooperation brings very good things because, for example, the bomb squad technicians, they like to blow things out. So when people ask us, how do you train for the secondary device? Very simple. I asked my friend from the bomb squad to blow out something 5, 6, 7 minutes after the first ambulances arrive. Okay. So there is a real explosion and smoke and a flash on the scene. And then people are better aware of that.
No, that's the use of bystanders is actually a very interesting thing because, as you know, that in the Western world we want to cordon off areas. We want to let only the professionals in, and getting as many hands on scene to help clear everybody off the scene as quickly as possible is always is certainly to the benefit of the situation, and as much help as possible is always helpful. Let me ask you, just so the life of a paramedic in Israel. I'll use the United States again as an example. Paramedics aren't going to be poor, but they're not going to be rich. They're going to work very hard, and the lifestyle is very challenging. By comparison, how is it in Israel for the standard paramedic working on the street?
Same. If you're an Israeli paramedic, you will work 6 days a week, 8 hours a shift, and you will run about 6 to 8 calls per shift.
That's busy.
Yes. If you want to earn a good salary, we don't have the idea of fixed shifts, which means that you might be working today the morning shift, tomorrow the afternoon shift, coming back to a morning shift and a night shift, coming back to the afternoon shift. We work 7 to 3, 3 to 11, 11 to 7.
Okay.
And that irregular pattern of shifts is one of our major human resource issues that we are trying to solve now, because physiologically and psychologically it is a problem. People find it very hard to plan their lives when they are working this pattern this week and another totally different pattern next week. We also don't have the idea of partners, which means that each and every shift we will be working with different crew members.
Oh. Well, I don't know. I guess there's benefits and detractions from that. When you work with different partners all the time, you learn different work styles, different styles for treating patients, and that certainly helps you. But it also, having a regular partner, there's something comfortable about it as well.
Of course. I would say that the older you grow, the better you like the idea that you have the same partner.
I agree. I think, probably when you're new, having different partners facilitates a lot of learning, which is helpful. But once you reach a certain point in your career, it's nice just to have a certain comfort level.
Yes.
Okay. Now, if anybody, a lot of our listeners are paramedics that do some traveling, that go to other countries, that either have worked or are looking towards working in war zones, which doesn't really apply to Israel, because despite the perception in the news, Israel really isn't a war zone.
Yes, that's the sad part. The sad part of the story. I remember talking to a paramedic in New York City, and he said, "Giuliani ruined our fun in the 70s. Shotguns, stab wounds. It was a lot of trauma patients. It was fun, and now the city is safe, and all we are dealing with are elderly patients who are feeling sick." So for those who are looking for the adrenaline of multi-casualty situations, I have to say that, thank God, in the recent years, we are normal EMS dealing with structural fires, car accidents, without any major explosions, and I hope it will stay like that.
Well, that's good. I mean, I know that I work in a very urban kind of rough town. We call it the Knife and Gun Club in New Jersey, and I probably see on a regular basis gunshots and stabbings and human-to-human interpersonal violence, probably a lot more regularly than any paramedic does in Israel.
For sure.
But on the odd occasion, every once in a while, you do have those large incidents that everybody looks to Israel for their expertise. So, if a paramedic from the West is looking towards maybe coming to Israel to volunteer or for a job, or is there a process that they can do that, to even to just check it out, maybe do a little ride along for a week or two?
There is no process. It's on a case-by-case basis. The best way of doing it is log into our website, www.mdais.com, madaisrael.com.
Okay, I'll post that on the website.
And send us a message, because the basic, if someone wants to volunteer for a week or two, it won't be a problem, because you can go on the ALS unit, you can observe, you cannot perform. If it's for a job purpose, then there will be a whole process of scrutiny because the paramedic certificate in Israel is signed by the Director General of the Ministry of Health. So our medical director will have to validate the training as equal to the Israeli training. And in some cases, it requires an exam. In some cases, only some training shifts. And it's decided, as I said, on a case-by-case basis.
Okay. Okay, well, that's fair. If somebody, now, when you initially make the application and contact, having either NREMTP or AREMT certification, is that helpful?
Of course. Of course, because these are internationally recognized certificates that assure a level of training. Because otherwise it's quite a nightmare to go through college descriptions of training, which sometimes are very generic and you don't really know what the person has been gone through.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you, we're actually doing a record. We're going to do another interview next week. It's separate from your organization. It's a group called EVP, Emergency Volunteers Program, that arranges for volunteers, for firefighters, EMTs, doctors, paramedics, nurses, to go to Israel to volunteer, which is, I know, separate from your organization. So everybody stay tuned. We'll have that information if that's something you're interested in pursuing. Fantastic. So if there's anything you want to say to anybody, like what they shouldn't think of Israel as necessarily a dangerous place, come and visit. Any last words?
Dangerous, it's not. Hot, it is. So unless you are very familiar with hot and humid climate, don't choose summertime. And the more languages you speak, the better. You will be surprised how culturally diverse we are. Most of the people speak some English, so it will be okay, but if you speak Russian, it will help you a lot. If you speak Amharic, it's a great advantage. Spanish also goes. And part of the challenge and the fun in what we do is trying to communicate with all those different separate groups in our population, their perceptions and needs.
Yeah, well, one thing I can tell you that Israel probably has as many languages spoken there than is in New York City, for instance. I mean, the national languages are both Hebrew and Arabic, but pretty much every other language that you can think of is spoken there at some level.
Yes.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Chaim, and thanks for joining us, and I hope you stay safe.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for listening to the Ambulance World podcast at www.ambulanceworld.com. Please remember to like us on Facebook and sign up for our free newsletter and updates. If you enjoyed this podcast, please share it with your friends on Facebook and Twitter. Any questions or comments, please feel free to contact us at info@ambulanceworld.com. Stay safe and enjoy life.